Hi everyone, this video is about a comparison between NSGA-II and NSGA-III to solve multi-objective sectorization problems based on statistical parameter tuning. This is a joint work with 3 authors for the 4th International Conference on Control, Artificial Intelligence, Robotics and Optimization in September 2020. The outlines of this presentation can be summarized like this. We compared the NSGA-II and NSGA-III algorithms to solve multi-objective sectorization problems. We focus on the effects of the parameters of the algorithms on their performance. We use statistical experimental design to find more effective parameters. The used statistical methods are analysis of variance, Taguchi design, and response surface method. The criterion of the comparison is the number of obtained non-dominated solutions by the algorithms. The results show that the performance of algorithms improves with appropriate parameters definition. With the parameters defined based on experiments, NSGA-III outperformed NSGA-II. Sectorization problems are important parts of the supply chain management. Sectorization is generally related to geographical aspects and has many applications in dividing a large territory of sales, airspace, municipality, healthcare, electric power, and etc. into smaller regions. The multi-objective sectorization problem of this paper deals with the division of a region that contains a set of customers and potential distribution centers into smaller districts called sectors. Each sector consists of a subset of customers and a DC to serve them. It is intended to achieve geographically separated and also balanced sectors in terms of demands and distances. This is an illustrative example of the problem. DCs and customers are shown with squares and circles respectively. The squares shown in green and blue are the opened ones. Each DC and the assigned customers form a sector which are shown with the same color. As mentioned before, the problem is a multi-objective problem. We have 4 objective functions. To be minimized, our objective functions of the cost of opening DCs, variance of the demands of the sectors, average distance of the customers from DCs of sectors, variance of the total distance of customers from DCs of sectors. F1, the first objective function, is calculated like this. If DCL is open, XL is equal to 1 and in other words, it's equal to 0. The related cost of opening the DCL is COL and this summation is equal to F1, which is the first objective functions. The sum of XLs is equal to M, which is the number of open DCs and also the number of formed sectors. The second objective function is the variance of the demands of sectors defined as in equation 3 based on this decision variable. F3 is the average of distances of customers from DCs of sectors. In fact, F3 represents the value of geographical overlap of sectors. The lower values of F3 show more geographically separated sectors. F4 is the variance of the total distance of customers from DCs of sectors. And in this way, the multi-objective function of the sectorization problem is defined as in equation 7. The problem has some constraints. For example, each customer must be assigned to only one sector, which is provided by equation 8 based on this decision variable. As mentioned earlier, F3 can represent the value of geographical overlap of sectors. Considering the importance of geographical separation of the sectors, an upper limit is defined for the value of F3, which is defined as in this inequality. To meet the demands, a vehicle is allocated to each sector. We didn't use any decision variables for assigning the vehicle because it is supposed that the capacity of vehicles is the same. However, using constraint 10, we ensure that the total demands of the customer in each sector is less than or equal the capacity of each vehicle. The chromosome representation of the algorithm is seen in this figure, where each column stands for a DC and the related sector. In the design crossover operator, a subset of customer is selected and is replaced in sectors of children according to the parents. And as seen in this figure, 3 types of mutations are used. We use NSGA-II and NSGA-III to solve problem. These are multi-objective evolutionary algorithms. They are based on a similar concept, which is the Pareto optimality concept. However, they may perform differently for the same problem due to some differences between them. The topic of comparison between multi-objective evolutionary algorithms has been previously discussed by researchers, but the literature doesn't refer to any comparison between the performance of NSGA-II and NSGA-III to solve multi-objective sectorization problems. Also, in this work, we use parameter tuning, which is still the issue of the concern for many researchers. So, these matters can be considered as our contribution to the literature. We implement the algorithms in a MATLAB environment based on these parameters. These are base case parameters, and we also use other parameters. We generate our benchmarks, indicating as number of customers and number of potential DCs. 3 benchmarks are generated as these benchmarks, which can be taken into consideration as small, medium, and large benchmarks. It is assumed that in each benchmark, the number of available vehicles which have the same capacity is equal to the number of potential DCs. The capacity of each vehicle is calculated like this. We use the discrete uniform distribution to create customers' demands. Coordinates of customers and also DCs in 2 dimensions are generating according to the normal distribution, which is this distribution. Opening cost of each DC in all benchmarks is equal to 10. In the following part of this work, at first, the small benchmark is solved by NSGA-II and NSGA-III with base case parameters, and the results are compared. As the first experiment and the first analysis, the effect of parameters are used in the NSGA-II-III is analyzed. In NSGA-II algorithm, in NSGA-III algorithm, there are some structure reference points in each dimension. So the number of intervals on each axis is equal to R, and this parameter is special to NSGA-III. After analyzing the effect of parameter R in NSGA-III, defining different levels for the parameters, experiments are done to find better parameters, and later the other benchmarks are solved using the defined parameters. The next table presents the achieved results for the small benchmark using base case parameters and according to different values of R for NSGA-III. In the table, NS stands for the number of non-dominated solutions achieved by the algorithm. As mentioned before, the first analysis of the work is to evaluate the effect of R in NSGA-III algorithm. For this aim, we do the one-way ANOVA test. In analysis of variance test, the factor is the value of R and the dependent variable is NS, which is the number of obtained non-dominated solutions. The defined hypotheses are as follows. H0. There is no difference between the result of NSGA-III derived with different values of R. And H1. At least there is a difference between two groups with different values of R. Some conditions must be met to conduct the ANOVA test. These conditions are normality, sample independence, and variance equality. One of the geographical tools which is used to test the normality of data is the plot of residual. We use Minitab software to conduct statistical tests. The normal probability plots of residuals for the results of NSGA-III with different values of R are shown in these figures. As seen in figures B and D, the related p-values for the states when R is equal to 10 and also is equal to 30 is more than 5%. So the normality of data cannot be rejected. Also, as shown is figure A and C, which stands for the states when R is equal 5 and R is equal to 20, the related standard deviation are not so high. Then the ANOVA test to compare between NSGA-III with different values of R can be conducted. The results of ANOVA test to compare the results of NSGA-III with different values of R are shown in this table. As shown, the corresponding p-value is more than 5%, and therefore H0 cannot be rejected. So we can say that there are no differences between the results of NSGA-III derived with different values of R. Also, we use the 2K test. The grouping information shows that all of the results are in the same group. So it can also be concluded from these results that for this problem, R has no effect on the results. Also, before applying the Taguchi and response surface method, we used ANOVA test for comparison between NSGA-II and NSGA-III results. In the ANOVA test, to compare the results of NSGA-II and NSGA-III, the hypothesis of 0H0 was like this. There is no difference between the results of NSGA-II and NSGA-III. And H1, the other hypothesis, was like this. The results of NSGA-II and NSGA-III are different. Also, as a necessity for conducting the ANOVA test, we tested the normality of results for NSGA-II and NSGA-III. Based on the results and the corresponding p-value, it is possible to say that the results are distributed normally. And also, it is concluded that the results of NSGA-III and NSGA-II are different. Until this stage, we use the base case parameters, but to find more effective parameters, we apply the Taguchi method and response surface method. For this aim, we use the results of the small benchmark. Using the Taguchi method developed by Genichi Taguchi, the response can be evaluated according to the factor. In this study, the response is NS, or non-dominated solutions, number of non-dominated solutions, and factors are the parameters of the algorithms. The Taguchi method reduces the number of required tests, and this is the advantage of Taguchi method. According to a full factorial design, 81 experiments are required when there are 4 factors and 3 levels. It should be noted that now we have 4 factors, which are the parameters of the NSGA-II and NSGA-III algorithm. These parameters or factors are population size, number of iterations, crossover rate, and mutation rate. We define 3 levels for these factors, which are the low, medium, and high levels. That's why we say that we are using Taguchi method with 4 factors and 3 levels. However, it is said that according to the full factorial design, 81 experiments are required when we have 4 factors and 3 levels. Based on Taguchi orthogonal arrays and using L-line design, parameters can be evaluated with 9 experiments. More detailed information can be found in reference 2020. As seen in this table, 3 levels are defined for the parameters as low, middle, and high level. Maybe a person can ask that why 100 for low level, 200 for medium, and 500 for high level. These values are based on the experiments which we conducted before. So we can say that this definition is experimentally. This table shows the L9 orthogonal arrays in the Taguchi design. In this design, there are 9 experiments with different levels of the factors, and these are the obtained results according to these levels. 2 important outputs of the Taguchi method are the main effect plots for means and main effect plots for signal to noise, which are for NSGA-II in this page and for NSGA-III 3 in this page. As seen in these figures, there is a consistency with respect to factor A between these two plots. Also, in a similar way, there is a consistency according to the factor D between these two figures. We say there is a consistency between figure A and figure B for the results of NSGA-II because in the case of factor A, the high level, and in the case of factor D, the medium level goes to the base case. For example, the best case for factor A is here, which is according to the high level of the A, and also in the figure B, the highest level, the best level for factor A is according to the high level of this factor. Also, according to the factor D, the highest level, the best level is obtained according to the medium level of factor D. But this consistency doesn't exist between figure A and figure B regarding factor B and factor C. For example, regarding factor B, the best value in figure A is at the high level, but in figure B it is at the medium level. And now let's look at the results of NSGA-III. Inconsistency between figures A and B is only about factor D. Therefore, it is possible to say that for NSGA-III, better results can be obtained when the population size, number of iterations, and mutation rates are high, and the crossover rate is medium respectively, which corresponds to these values. So, since there is less inconsistency for the results of NSGA-III, we use Taguchi method to define the level of parameters. But it has been observed that the results of the Taguchi method for NSGA-II have more inconsistency. Based on this reason, the response surface method or RSM is used to define the level of the parameters for NSGA-II. The RSM method determines the relationship of a dependent variable with some independent variables. Using this method, the optimal value of the dependent variable can be found. In the defined model, the level low is defined as -2 and the level for high is defined as 2. So now we have 5 levels for our factors, which are summarized in this table, and we should note again that all of these levels are defined based on our previous experiences. The optimal levels of factors for NSGA-II using the RSM are like this. These levels correspond to 500 for population size, 500 for number of iterations, and these values for crossover rate and mutation rate. The obtained levels are exactly the same for first factor, second factor, and fourth factor, which are population size, number of iterations, and mutation rates, defined for NSGA-III by the Taguchi method, and also almost the same in terms of the third factor, which is the crossover rate. So until now, we defined the level of factors based on the Taguchi and RSM methods for the small benchmark. Now we want to use this information to solve the medium and large benchmarks. The values for the number of iterations and the rates of crossover and mutation are exactly the same for the small benchmarks, but for the larger benchmarks, the iteration number is defined as 50 to make a more reasonable runtime. Also, from the results of the ANOVA test, it has been concluded that for the problem of this study, the value of R is not effective. R is the number of intervals on each axis on NSGA-III algorithm. So, in order to reduce the computational load, we choose R equal to 5. Using these parameters, we solve the problem with NSGA-II and NSGA-III for the medium and large benchmarks. Acquired results with the optimized parameters for the medium and large size benchmarks are like this. So based on the results, it is clear that with optimized parameters, NSGA-III has better results than NSGA-II. Now we can summarize our contributions of these works. In this study, as a first time in the literature, NSGA-III is used to solve multi-objective sectorization problem, and the obtained results are compared with NSGA-II. Also, different from previous works, the parameters of algorithms are tuned by statistical analysis. It is shown that the parameters seriously affect the results, and NSGA-III is able to acquire more non-dominated solutions when the parameters are defined properly. Although this study provides useful information, it has some limitations in terms of implementation and used operators. More effective crossover and mutation operators can be used instead of the applied ones. Also, it should be noted that implementation has been done on MATLAB, which can be insufficient in terms of solution time, especially when the size of benchmarks increase. We have an acknowledgement. This work is financed by the ERDF, European Regional Development Fund through the Operational Programme for Competitiveness and Internationalism Programme and by national funds for the Portuguese Funding Agency (FCT) within project with this ID. These are our references. And thank you so much for your listening. If you have any questions, you can write your questions in the comment parts.